the other coach was shouting at you half an hour. You were there freezing on the chalkboard, and now this old man just whispered to you something on your ear, and you did it. What did he tell you? And you know what was?
This is the freestyle way.
It's the first time we've ever spoken in English, and it's the first time I have done a double podcast. I'm doing it in Spanish and English because we thought this would be the best way of making the most impact with our conversation. But with that being said, Victor Cano, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. And you know what I realized as we started speaking English, that I started to adopt a Spanish accent in my English speaking.
Okay.
So I will be mimicking you. And for those listening, if I sound funny, it's because I just can't help myself but to mimic the person that is in front of me. Victor, I've idolized you as a kid. Your gymnastics has always been inspiring. And now to be able to talk to you and to call you a friend is amazing. So yeah, really, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing with me.
Okay, I can say the same. It's a pleasure. We met when we were young and we were gymnasts, but it was like just crossing our lives like that. But when we got to know each other was when we were grown ups, and at that moment, I was idolizing you for the job you did, bringing the gymnastics out of the world of gymnastics and making the most of it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a pleasure also for me.
Wow. Well, we get to be fans of each other, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Victor, the first podcast we did in Spanish, and it already has a title. This was last week. We recorded this. And it's the life and evolution of an Olympic gymnast. So I thought what we could do in today's episode, rather than trying to replicate what we already recorded, was to use that title to dive in and have a little bit of a framework, and then allow for whatever it is that is alive in us to come out as we go. So with that being said, tell me about how you got into gymnastics and why you stuck with it for so long.
So right from the beginning, I like it. So I tried different sports when I started with 11, which is kind of a late time to start gymnastics for some people. And before I tried swimming, I tried soccer. We're from Spain. You always try soccer. And I did judo. So I tried a bunch of different sports, but none of them were like, I'm going to do this forever. And then it came this movie, Breakdance, Electric Boogaloo. I don't know if that's the name in here, but it was that was the 80s, and the breakdance was like a new thing, and especially for us. And we were like, wow, look what these people are doing. I want to do this. So I was doing handstands and stuff at the school, just in the recess by myself. And at some point, the coach of the school coach told me, "Hey, what are you doing here? You're doing handstands and stuff." "Yeah, I want to do this breakdance, blah blah." And then he introduced me. There's a thing called gymnastics, artistic gymnastics, and it's actually doing this all the time. And I was like, wow. So he introduced me on the sport. It was new for me and also for my family. And yeah, I started training. My mom had no idea what I was doing. So literally the first competition after 1.5 years when she got there was like, is this what you were doing? And she was so scared the first time he saw me on the parallel bars doing a handstand, and he couldn't watch. Then she got used to. And well, yeah, I started with 11 and I love it from the first day because it was challenging and different. You know, in gymnastics, there were 6 different events. Every day was different. And there's a strong bond between the gymnasts, especially when you're little, because you're all scared, and that makes you closer to the other ones. And yeah, I fall in love like from the first sight, you know, and then it was like okay, now we're training 3 hours every day, 3 times a week. And I was like, okay, good for me. And then I was picked for the federation, and it's like, you want to train every day, but 6 hours? And I was like, okay, the more the better. And then little by little, I was in, and at some point I was with 13, and I was in a special program, and I was training like 8 hours every day, nonstop. But honestly, to me, it was like playing in this moment. So it was like, the more, the better. And yeah, I was a gymnast all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden you were a gymnast. You know, as you were speaking, I just had a memory where when I first started doing gymnastics, I started doing gymnastics in a after-school program, and this was just a gym that had mats it wasn't even a floor. It was just like mats that you would sit on. And I remember the first thing that impacted me was, one, they would place you on the mat according to how good you were. So if you were the best gymnast in the room, you would be on mat number 1. If you're the 50th worst, you would be all the way in the back. And the second thing that impressed me was that when we were warming up, when we got to the flexibility part, the stretching part, that they would push you to the point of experiencing pain. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. They're trying to split me open, basically. Did you have any of those memories or any impactful moments like that when you first started doing gymnastics? Was there anything that impressed upon you strongly?
Yes, sure. So this first contact with me was in a little club, and they were not, was a club for boys and girls, and they were not trying to do competition, was just like recreational. So nothing really impacted me, but the fact that I love it. But then when I moved to this program of the federation, we were competing, there were a lot of rules that were not rules, were things that people just do. People, they just did it every day. It was like, okay, you have to do this. One of them was this lineup we do at the beginning of every training, morning and evening, every day. You're just there talking to your friends, and at some point you hear the claps of the coach, and the first thing you do is to line up, like kind of on an army way, and so everybody can see each other, look at the faces, the coach tell you what's gonna happen, and if you have something to say, that's your moment. If there's any problem, that's your 1 minute to talk, and then everything starts, and that was impressive, because if you were late on that lineup, you couldn't train. And for me, with 12 years, being driven by my mother, I was not the one we were always kind of late. And I was like feeling this anxious for 1 minute, like we can be late. One minute can make the whole difference. 1 minute and I'm out of the training for 3 hours, That was new for me, that kind of discipline. And yeah, that impressed me. And the other thing that I remember with a good memory, and I try to tell my kids, is that usually in Spain, when you get into a gymnastics hall and everybody's training, no matter if you are 5 years or you are 20, you gotta go to all the coaches, even if they are not your coaches, and say hi and introduce you and say, hey, I'm here. Maybe you're 6 years old. I'm here. I'm going to be here the whole training, and I want you to say hi to you, It was a nice thing.
Yeah, that's powerful. Actually, it's interesting. I actually write about this in my book, how when I started coaching, the first thing I did was I put them in formation. Everybody stood tall, shoulder to shoulder, because that's how I had been trained. I had been trained to open and close in line. And now that you say it, it's a very big part of the culture for developing high-level performance, especially in gymnastics. And I wonder where that comes from. But I don't know if you know, but I'm curious if it's something that has to do with a military background, or something maybe even in the ancient Greek culture that is coming up there. Do you know?
Well, it might be because gymnastics, it's a military sport. So for many years, everything was just for military, and then they try to compete between them. And then that you can track the Bumble Horse. It's a horse with a saddle, and the bar was just the pull up bar, and now they're doing crazy stuff, but everything comes to the army. And well, I like it. Now I'm working with another kind of sport, like artistic swimming, and we do training of gymnastics, and I line up with them, like you were saying, shoulder to shoulder. They tend to round the line, to wrap, and it's like, no, go go there and do a straight line. I know it's kind of weird, but we want to see each other in the same situation. At some point, this line was kind of stressful because the order or where you place yourself in this line sometimes shuffle. I remember a few years where there were like a rank on the wall, and you will line up the more on your right if you were higher on the rank. Other years was just by height, but by the end it happened the more organic one, who was the older people, the people that were for longer period of time in that gym were more on the right, and the newbies they were putting themselves on the left.
Exactly. Yeah. We had the same thing. It's so interesting how as soon as you walk into a gymnastics facility, especially if it's a competitive one, you're going to know where you stand immediately, not only through your skill, but you're also going to know just by where you're standing.
Yeah.
How good or bad you actually are. That's incredible. Victor, tell me, when you started training now, doing 2-a-days or training 8 hours a day, how were you coupling that with school?
Well, for me personally, was kind of not a problem until I got to college. I mean, middle school and high school was good. When we were in elementary school, we had a deal with the school, so we can train morning and evenings, and we will skip the first 3 hours in the morning. So we will got in the school around 11, and we skipped the first 3 hours, and then we were catching up on weekends and with special tutors. But that was not a big deal. Then when we moved to high school, that was a little bit more challenging, but we were lucky because we were doing everything in a high performance centers where we could sleep, eat, and study there, and everything was fast. And the coaches, they had access to the teachers, so they were working together, and that was easy. The problem started in college, because in Spain there's no instructor, so we allowed you to go to college and do sports. They are two different worlds. At some point you have to choose if you want to study or you want to do sports. I choose to try both of them. The first year I tried engineering and gymnastics, which didn't work because it was too demanding. I was trying to do two things that they need 8 hours a day, and there are no so many hours in the day. And then I switched to physical education, and again I was able to do a kind of a deal with the teachers, and yes, so I did it. But honestly, the majority of the people of the team, they couldn't study. Just, let's say, out of 8 people, just 3 we did our degrees. That's a thing that I think it could be better. It has to be fixed at some point in Spain.
Yeah, here you have here in the United States, you have collegiate sports, and the programs basically are designed around being able to go to school. In fact, if you're not doing well in school, a lot of athletes can't participate in the sport. But at the same time, they also cap the number of hours that collegiate athletes can practice. And I don't know if this is still true or if it's for all sports, but I believe it's around 20 hours a week. Anything over 20 hours is it's kind of under the table. It's in the dark.
I know. And many sports, they have different rules for let's say, the Olympic Games and the NCAA. So yeah, they want to make sure that they are doing sport for the college, not for national teams. National team, it's kind here. The national team don't have the privilege in the U.S. that it has in Spain. Here, it's much better to choose college sport. Everything is the structure. It's pushing you in that direction.
Yeah. And do you know if here in the United States, if you go to the Olympics, if you can go back and do collegiate afterwards, or once you've done the Olympics, you can't go back?
No, it you can go back, and actually it helps you. I mean, your scholarship it increases if you have a good result on the Olympic Games, and you can take 2 gap years. So yeah, that's what some of the girls in the artistic swimming national team that I'm working with now,
and this is the USA national team.
In the USA national team, we have a couple of them. They're in Stanford, and a couple of them in Ohio, and they're gonna finish their NCAA competition period in May. They're gonna join the national team. They're gonna take 1 gap year this year, so they can do the qualification and eventually the Olympic Games, and they're gonna go back.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to you. When did you know that gymnastics was for you, and that you wanted to take gymnastics all the way, meaning make it to the Olympics?
I think it happens during the Seoul '88 Olympic Games. I was 10 and I was looking at the competition, and I was watching all the sports, but at some point gymnastics was there, and the United the Soviet Union, they were super over the rest of the people. There was Biloserchev, this gymnast, and they were throwing 10 points exercise here and there, and they look so over the top, and they look so graceful and so perfect that I was like, wow, I want to do this. I want to dress like they dress. I want to have this face, and I want to be there doing this and winning medals. And in those days, in the '88, it was hard, at least in Spain, to find a tape or a video. So that was my only chance. I saw gymnastics there, and they're like, okay, I wanna watch more. Where? They're like, there's no more to watch now for, I don't know, for years. Then I was looking some maybe motion pictures, and I found this American Anthem picture.
American Anthem, yeah, it's a classic movie.
Yeah, that I love it, and I was like, wow, and I stuck. I was like, I watched it like 10 times in a row. Like, wow, that's the best.
Incredible. With Mitch Gaylord.
Mitch Gaylord. Yeah, it's a very cool story. And yeah, I was watching the Super Pros and the movies, and then I picture myself like, I'm gonna do this. I mean, I have no doubt. So when I started in this recreation club, I remember that I did my first competition. I don't know if I did good or bad, but I finished like 20 something, and I didn't care really. Then on the second one, I finished 5th, and was like, wow, what happened here? Something happened. I was 23rd, I went 5th, and then on the third one, I wanted to be in the podium, and I finished 3rd. And yeah, I finished this one season, like going better and better and better, and then it was like, wow, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do forever, because it was, I don't know why it was easy. I tried swimming first, and I was not very good. I was very, very short. I still very short, and swimming was not my thing. Then I tried basketball, and I did good, but I mean, the guys were much bigger than I was. And in gymnastics, everyone was short, like I was. So I was like, wow, that's my thing, And yeah, everything was kind of, I don't know, everything was pushing me there, like in a very easy way. Even if the sport is not popular in Spain, even there's not much future on being a gymnast. It's much smarter to be soccer player or tennis player. But yeah, Was like gymnastics is like a romantic thing, you know. You do it because you like it, not for any other purpose, I think.
Oh, right. It's not like you're going to come out a millionaire
No.
out of gymnastics victories.
No,
But
I
you,
don't think
you
so.
you can make a living through gymnastics, but it requires a whole set of very unique things to happen and a very unique person to convert that. But anyways, when you started getting closer to that moment of qualifying for the Olympics, this is something I asked you in the previous podcast, but was that life-changing for you? And if so, in what way was it life-changing?
Well, I don't really call it like a life changing the qualification, because I don't know, maybe I was naive, but I thought there was like one thing is gonna just fall in place like one after another, you know. So I started, like I was telling you, in little regional competitions, and I didn't finish because on the last question, but when I finished this year with the recreation, I my coach asked me, what do you want to do in gymnastics? And I was 11, and I told him I want to be world champion. And I remember the face of the coach looking at me like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to be world champion. I want to go to competition. I want to beat them all, you know? And then he told me, okay, we have a problem here because this is not your place. And I cried and blah, blah, blah. And then I move on, you know? But I was very clear and in my objective. I want to do this. So then I went to Spanish national championships. I finished on the, I don't know, if first, second, it's okay. But everything happens like then I was competing in the European Championship, then I was competing on the World Championships. And to me, the Olympic Games were something that was just there. You know, I was never thinking of not making it to the Olympic Games. So when we qualify in the 1999 Tianjin World Championships, it is true that we had a great team. Jesus Carballo was world champion already. Gervasio de Fer was, he finished second. So we were not all of us, but the six gymnasts that make the team. We were all fighting for our finals, and we were all very clear that we're going to the Olympic Games, you know. So it was like something. It has to happen. So yeah, that was not life changing. To me, it was more life changing when I competed in the Olympic Games and I didn't make the final. That was like life changing. But for the first time, it was like, hey, no, bro, you're not gonna make it. This is not that easy. You know, it was like, what? That was a shock.
Yeah. So it wasn't qualifying for the Olympics that changed your life. It was getting to the Olympics and not getting the result that you were expecting to get. And then when you came back, was it just straight back to training, go to the next Olympics and start the process over again? Or was there a new mindset and way of looking at things in competition that you started to integrate?
That's a good question, because if I was not happy with the result on 2000 Sydney Olympic Games, I should change something and to try to make it better, but I didn't. I just came back and was like, okay, we have 4 more years to do this better, and I'm gonna start now. So I didn't take any break, and I started, like, let's say we came back one Monday, I started training on Friday. So I took like 4 days. I went straight to Madrid, to the high performance center. I was training like alone, I remember, with just me and my coach. Like, okay, I was thinking everybody's stopping, I'm not gonna stop. Then that's gonna give me an advantage. But it wasn't the case. Now I can see that it's better to stop and be reflexive and think what I did wrong, what I can do better. But honestly, I didn't did it. I just kept on training, practicing more and more and more. I thought that I was young because I was 22 on the first Olympic Games, and I thought, okay, in 26 I'm gonna be better. I'm just gonna keep it up, and that's it. So I didn't change much. My biggest mindset change came on 2004, right on the year of the Olympic Games, when I changed my routine on Bumble Horse, and I felt like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm gonna win everyone, And then I went to my first World Cup, and I did my first gold medal, and for the first time I beat everyone, and that was like, okay, now I can do it,
Mm. And when this is something that we also discussed in the previous podcast, which was you wanted to know how to win, and Jesus Carvalho at the time told you that in order to win, you just have to win once. Right? And that's the secret. And you, for example, you won this event in this competition. After that, was that true that winning once allowed you to win more, or was it different than you thought?
No, it was true. When he first gave me this advice, I thought like, well, this is silly. What are you talking about? I know that you have to start doing one, but no, there's a truth in it, because it's the thing that you have to first you have to picture yourself winning, and you have to believe that you can do it, and you have to not be afraid of winning. I remember my coach telling me sometimes, I think you're afraid of winning. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm afraid of losing. And he told me, no, you're afraid of winning. And you're doing like a sabotage to you, so you cannot win, because you don't think you deserve it, And now I can see there's some truth in this word, you can be scared of doing it good. You gotta be brave to beat them all. And yeah, after I did it for the first time, after Jesus Carvalho, who was a world champion twice in this moment, he told me this, he gave me this advice. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it now. So I went, I did it, and it was so easy. All of a sudden it was easy. So the thing I was pursuing for 7 years, to go in competition and do my best, and have the highest score, and no matter what, winning the competition was easy. It happened like nothing. I was like, wow, I'm doing it. And I did it 2 times. I qualified in the first place, and I took the gold medal. Then when I compete on the next World Cup in Paris, which is a big competition, Paris-Bercy, and I did compete like 3 times before. I never did the final. I was there like, there's no way that I'm not doing the final, and I'm going to go for medals. And I finished second. So it happened again. Okay, I didn't win, but I was there. And then I think I was on all the finals after this code boost. It's not just me that I thought, okay, I deserve it. It's also the judges and all the gymnastics community and the audience, and and once you win one, you walk different. You're not scared of doing the warm up with the guys who are fighting for medals, and you feel that you belong there.
Yeah, you told me before that there was a time where you would even talk to the judges to let them know what you were going to do, so they actually saw and they didn't miss anything. Is that legal? Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, that's legal, I guess. No, that's legal. And I did that on 2004 when I was 20 something. But before, I wouldn't even talk to the judges. To me, the judges were the enemy, To me, the good guys were the gymnasts and the coaches, and the bad guys of the competition were the judges that were taking you out your job, giving you tens of penalties and taking out your points. But yeah, I was more mature, and I was thinking, hey, those guys, the judges, they are the one giving the medals. They are the ones telling, and you gotta like them. You cannot hate them, because if you hate them, they hate you, usually when you hate someone, this someone hates you too, you know? It's like a mutual feeling. It's very weird that you don't like someone and this someone likes you. It's, you know, people feel things. So it's like, I was like, okay, I gotta be friend of those dudes, you know? They are there. They're there. They're the same people. Every competition, we know each other for years now. Some of them, they were all gymnasts. So I was making some good relations, saying hi to everyone, blah, blah, blah. And at some point, I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to have my start value right, because it's a thing. And you can talk to them during the warm-up and during the previous day. They are there. They're watching. And they are making their own rankings before the competition. And since you're not allowed to talk to them in the competition, you cannot finish on the competition and ask them, why you did that or the other. I was doing this the day beforehand, you know. I was like, asking them, what do you think of my exercise? Do you like it? Do you think this is 10 points? That was nothing. I was not telling them I want to win, give me them more points. I was just asking, you know. And I had a couple of friends, one from Finland and another one from Hungary, and I will bring them a bottle of wine. I know they love the wine the day before, like a little present. And yeah, they were nice to me, and I was nice to them, you know. I can tell here that I've seen giving like TVs and big presents from the, let's say, the Chinese delegation to many judges. So this is a thing that happened, and I think this is not legal. But with these people that I have a good relationship, I knew them. They were in my house sometimes when we do camps together. I was just trying to be nice and have good relationship, good international relationships, you know, because you cannot win if you are against everybody. You need a little net of support of yourself.
Yeah, you know, this is so interesting that you're bringing this up, and we didn't talk about this in the Spanish version of the podcast, but this is also, it's not just personal relationships that you're building and professional relationships, but it's what we would call these days personal branding. You were really developing a presence within the gymnastics community that stood for something and that had something that was unique to your style that had to be impressed upon in the community beyond just the moment of competition. Meaning, for example, if you go to a competition and you have your practice day, so the day before, podium training, whatever you want to call it, people are watching then. Like, people are noticing you. And then you have your competition, and then you go through the finals, and hopefully you end up on the podium. But the competition is not only the competition day; it's everything that entails being there and being present and doing gymnastics. In addition to that, there is the relationships that you're building with all the gymnasts outside of the competition, with all the judges outside of the competition, with all the organizers outside of the competition. And in the year 2000, there was no social media, but now there's social media. And people are presenting their gymnastics on a daily basis. They are propagating how they do gymnastics constantly, thus influencing the judges, the organizers, other teams, sponsors, and the whole thing. So in many ways, my sense is that you are doing personal branding. Then do you agree with that, or
Yeah.
What do you think?
It makes a lot of sense now that you're bringing it up in that way. But yeah, it was just saying, hey, I am here, and I want you to know me, you know, because in the year 2000, not many people knew me, and in the year 2004, a lot of people knew me, because when you're a junior, you're kind of out of the radar, but when you're a senior and you're there in the many world championships, everyone can see you. And I remember the first day I won this World Cup, many people, coaches from other countries and judges, they told me, I'm happy for you, because for the first time you won. Because all they all knew my story, and we all know each other's stories. It's a very little community, and we compete in the World Championships. They last like 11 days, and we spend a lot of time together. I was one watching all the trainings. I did my training 3 hours, and then I stayed there on the gym, like, I don't know, like until the last gymnast left, because I wanted to learn. And as you were saying, everything that happens counts. Everything that happens during competition goes for the competition. I mean, if you cross in the hotel with another contender for the Bumble Horse final, and you stare at his eyes and he stares at you, that counts. Everything counts. And if you meet a judge or the head of the judges from Bumble Horse, and you, I don't know, you cross with him and you don't say, hey, how are you? This is Victor. I'm happy to see you. And you just turn your head, that counts. And I think every little thing counts. And I was very aware of doing all my job, not just on the competition, but in every second I was in the World Championships or Olympic Games.
Yeah, you really lived gymnastics. And this is what I've been thinking about a little bit over the last week since we last spoke, which is this idea of the difference between being in development and competing. What's the difference between practice and training and competing? What's the difference in mindset, and what's the difference in the way that you approach it? Can you talk about that? Do you have any insight on how you approached it growing up as a gymnast?
Yeah, I do. Because it took me years to learn how to compete. It took me years to have a system that works for me. It took me a lot of competitions. I mean, my first European Championships, I fell everywhere, and then on my second, I did better. The third and the first in the first World Championships, I did bad. And at some point, it was like, okay, I cannot do bad on my first Olympic Games, because you have like 2 chances in your life or 3, so you better figure it out before. And to me, competition was another world, but not for everyone. I mean, Alexei Nemov, to me, one of the greatest gymnasts and a good friend of mine. I remember he told me during one was the Olympic Games before the final, the floor final. I was like, "How are you at?" And he told me, "I'm okay. For me, this is like a training. My trick is that I go there, and I delete and I erase everyone. I take out all the people there, and I just look at the floor, and I transform that floor on my home floor, and then I do my practice as I'm doing every day." That's what he told me. But for me, that was very hard to do, because I was not focused like closing. I was focused opening, so I couldn't hear everyone on the audience. I couldn't see all the faces. I was like over focused. And at some point, I was like, okay, to me, competition is not training, is not practice. So I cannot pretend to do the same. I have to perform the same, but my brain cannot be the same setup. So what I tried to do was emptying my mind as much as I could. I didn't have the tools. Now I know meditation and breathing exercise that could ease my flow of thinking, but on those days I didn't. But I had a very good sports psychologist, and he teach me like okay, if your brain is gonna be filled out with stuff, choose this stuff, okay? So be ready. And let's say on Bumble Horse, the exercise lasts like 30 seconds, and I knew that the first 5 seconds I would just have in my head one sentence that was like, okay, keep your legs together and grab with both arms the handle. So, and then after that, boom, another thing came was like, okay, now open your legs as much as possible, blah, blah. So I was choosing what to think, and at some point it worked. But just for wrapping this up, my coach, Lev Kolyandrin, the was a Belarusian and was the man who teach me the more important lessons here. He always said, competition is another animal, and we cannot practice this other animal bad in competition. We can do whatever you want here. We can do mock meets. We can do practices with judges. We can do anything. But the day D, at the hour H, when you're gonna go out in the World Championship, this is another thing, and you gotta learn there, not here. And I agree.
Yeah, very interesting, and something that has been coming up more and more for me is this idea that the best bridge from development or training practice to competition is when you can compete and forget that you are competing.
Yeah.
Which, like when you're talking about those sentences, like, okay, my first 5 seconds, I'm just going to focus on getting to the pommel and making sure that both my hands are on the pommel. 2 hands on the pommel. Then you're just repeating that sentence. When you anchor yourself in a sentence like that, you are putting focus onto one thing, not what the audience is saying, not what's coming next, just the one thing that you're currently doing. And when you become process oriented like that, which is something that you can do in training and practice too, in fact, you have to do it. It allows you to forget that you're competing. And when you forget that you're competing, you're actually doing your best expression or your best gymnastics. But it's very hard to drown out the voices, the noise in your head. And I'm wondering, did you have any rituals that you did going into competition?
Yeah, I did a lot of rituals. I was not the one doing the more, but because gymnastics, it's first, it's an individualistic sport. So you are there by yourself and you feel it that you are there by yourself. When you raise your arm and it's like, okay, this is go time, there's no one. It's just you there. And second, it's scary. It's scary during practices because there is a inherent risk on everything you're doing, and then you're scared of falling because it takes you like 1 second to be down and be out of the competition. And I think all these fears, they find support on little rituals or maniatic behaviors. I was like, I want to look on the you have this. There's the competition, okay, World Championships, and there's like 1 hour of practice. The last 10 minutes is when you are done, and these 10 minutes between when you're done and you're gonna be called in are the more scary moment of the whole thing. Of these 10 minutes. In these 10 minutes in gymnastics, no one speaks to anyone. Everyone is doing his own stuff. We're not cheating like, come on, guys, let's go for it. No. I was doing my stuff. I wanted to be sure, to make sure that I have my grips on place. And then during the day of during the actual competition, I did like little things like my socks were always like down, and I just put it like all the way up when was the competition. Was like this. I remember this movie of Sylvester. No, not Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, Sylvester Stallone doing
arm wrestling. Yeah,
arm wrestling, and he was a truck driver. Blah blah blah. And he said, "I have my cap here. When I turn my cap back, this is go time. This is competition. So I like a switch on, So I had these two little things that I do with my socks, like, okay, this is go time. This is I just do this when it's competition. But I've seen doing crazy stuff like closing and opening 5 times the bags, or making sure that that the shoes were lined up, or yeah. Everyone was doing crazy stuff. Gymnastics, it's a sport for crazy people, and it's not me saying this. Is my wife and partner in life, Andrea Fuentes. She's a top athlete. Actually, she's Olympic medalist, but she always says, you gotta be a little bit crazy to do gymnastics. And every gymnast I've met, every each one has a little something in the head, like a little craziness. And yeah, I agree on this. So yeah, and then in competition and stressful moments is when all this craziness go up.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I want to fast forward a little bit now to Athens, and you coming back from Athens and having qualified for the finals, but then not reaching the goal of being on the podium, and then having to go through another 4 years to try to get to Beijing in 2008, but then right at the cusp of getting there, deciding to quit. Why do you quit, and how does it happen?
Well, after the 2004 Olympic Games, something happened that was had a big impact in the gymnastics community. Is that they changed the whole rule of books. They changed everything. They took out the 10 points approach for an open code where the difficulty was unlimited, so you couldn't do anything. And I was at this moment for a big change like that. I was not old, but I was facing my third Olympic Games, and then this change came, and I was not ready. It took me like 1 year, almost 2 years to understand what they were looking for.
I still don't understand the code.
Okay. So yes, and I was a very artistic focused gymnast. When I was a gymnast, I always tried to have the 10-point star value, but that was not super hard in those days. Many gymnasts, they had 10-point star values, and then if they all have 10 points, how you change, how you discriminate, how you rank them. And there, these little things like my toes, like being not here but here, like little detail in this corner, that was the artistic part that could make the difference. After 2004, all this was wiped out, and there were no more room for artistic expressions. And yeah, I was not suited for it. And honestly, when I went to the 2005 World Championships, I thought after this successful year in 2004, with all the World Cups, medals, and the final in the Olympic Games, I thought like, okay, now I'm here. Now I'm not out of the final by any means, but I was again 9. And I took it in 2005. I took it like, okay, I have to start all over again from the beginning, because I was 9 in 2000, and 2005 I was again out of the final, and with a new code of points and new faces. I for the first time, younger gymnasts, they were in the final, like, wow, these youngs come. I don't still get it, the how to score higher, and I'm out of the business again. And yeah, that was hard in Melbourne. I remember walking alone in Melbourne, kind of crying, like, don't tell me I have to start again. And then, well, everything has a battery and a life span. It's not like it's forever. And remember I started with 12, and I was 20 something. I was like kind of 27, 28, like 16 years in my top, trying to do the best. And at some point I was like, wow, my shoulder hurt because I didn't stop to recover. My feet hurt, and I was living in Barcelona because after so many years in Madrid, I was like, I need a change. So I bought my own house. I had a cat. I had a girlfriend. I have a kind of a life in Barcelona, and every time I have to went to Madrid to do a camp was like harder, and I was not one of the top guys, even in the national team, Spanish national team. There was Rafa Martinez, who was much better. I couldn't beat him. And I was like, in these moments, I was like, if I cannot do better than I did, I quit. I was very, very results oriented. I was not. Now I will approach different, and I tell my athletes, like, this is a process. You gotta enjoy the process. It's not just the the goal. It's not just the result. Do the whole thing. But in these days, I was not that way. Like now you can see Kelly Slater. He is a world champion 11 times, and he's still competing, and he's not winning anymore, but he's there. But for me, these were like, no. If I'm not doing better, if I'm not growing up, I'm quitting here, And yeah, 2008 came. The Olympic Games were very close. We were qualified for them, and was an European on March. On March, it was the first time I did the team for. Forever. Was the first team I was not in. I was in the audience, and I was like, wow, I think this is over. I'm here. They are there competing. This is the Spanish national team. I'm not in. So yeah, I think it's time to quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you quit, it was the infamous moment where you were gonna climb the rope, and you decided, okay, I'm not climbing this rope. I'm retiring. But that had also been prefaced by being at a big competition and being on the parallel bars, on the P bars, and about to do your dismount, which was a double pike, and not doing it because you said, you know what, I've hurt my foot doing this. I've been scared of this element before. I'm just not going to do it, and just doing a simple layout as your dismount. That there was something in your mind that just said, okay, that edge is not there. I don't have it, and there's a passing of the torch of sorts happening within the national team. So I gotta go. But I'm curious. Could you have become a specialist and just done pommel horse for a couple of years more, or was that not even an option in your mind because you are a pure gymnast who believes in the all around and six event approach?
Well, I'm gonna add to the moment of my retirement that I had no coach at this moment. I was living in Barcelona and my coach was in Madrid. So I'm gonna meet him, Fernando Siscar. I will meet him on the camps, like the 3 months before the Olympic Games or whatever, the big competition. But during the year, I had no coach. I had no one with me. So the day I decided not to climb the rope, I was literally by myself in the gym. So I don't know if you have ever been by yourself in the gym. You need a lot of willing to train, And my battery were like going down and very fast, because this is grinding when you train alone, And I think I might have a coach there supporting me and helping me. Maybe I would take smarter decisions, like you were saying. Let's do pommel horse. And I many times I've been thinking many times on this, because I'm 45. I can still do pommel horse. I think with a good plan, I could still be in the competitions in a high level, just doing pommel horse, training 3 hours a day, no more, no 8 hours again, no breaking your shoulders on the rings, no breaking your ribs on the bar, nothing, just pommel horse. That's it. And I was a master doing pommel horse, and I struggled doing other events. But yes, as you were saying, when I started doing gymnastics, doing just one event was not an option. You had to do the 6 events, and even you had to do compulsories and then the free routine. So to me, the real gymnast was the one doing the 6, and that was the thing that I love the more. I still, when I watch a competition, the competition I like the more is the all around, because this is the gymnast. So yeah, it could be an option, but yeah, it's an option afterwards. Also, it's very hard to make the team if you just do one event and you're putting the team on a situation, and you're putting the head coach in a situation, because you're taking out someone who maybe can do 3, 4. So you gotta be like world champion if you want just to do one event and go to the big competitions. And that was not the case in this moment.
Yeah, makes sense. And just for people to understand, when you had to do compulsory events, compulsory routines, you had to do all 6 events, compulsory routines, which is kind of like a basic thing that everybody does for contrast, and then you had to do your free routines, which was the routine that you made up yourself and that you composed, and that means that you had to do for 6 events 1 routine, that twice, so 12 routines, and then that's not including the vault, which in free routine you would do two different vaults. So it was 13 different routines, which, let's say an average routine on has 10 elements, so to speak. That's 130 different elements or moves that you have to be preparing for. It's a lot of volume. It's insane. And of course your batteries were trained. Yeah. So when you retire, I know that you had a moment where you were struggling and you kind of lost your identity because everything was wrapped around gymnastics, and but eventually through the breakup with your girlfriend, you landed in a Vipassana retreat, in a 10-day silent retreat. I want to hear, what was that like, and what was the moment where you realized that your life had now changed forever, but it wasn't over?
That was the same moment that I find myself speaking to me in this. Okay, so let's move to this Vipassana retreat. I quit. It's a 1 year gap between my last practice and the Vipassana retreat. 1 year, 12 months. Those were hard months. I was like kind of lost. My identity was lost. My friends, they were not my... Well, I was hanging with different people, trying different stuff. I was not working. I was partying a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was doing... I didn't know... I wasn't doing my life without a plan. There was no purpose. It was just the day by day. And at some point it was like, wow, I'm getting lost, and I'm almost 30. And I have two university degrees, and I have to do something. So yeah, in this Vipassana retreat, I think it was like the 8th day or the 7th day. It's a 10-day retreat. I was just walking, and you cannot talk to no one there, so you talk to yourself many times. And I remember talking to me like, hey, Victor, hi, are you there? Yeah, I'm here. And this one guy who answered for the first time was not Victor Gymnast, was Victor little kid before gymnastics. And they was like, wow, there's a me without gymnastics. I don't need gymnastics to be myself, you know? I mean, gymnastics was an accessory, was like a adjective, was not myself, you know? And in that moment it was like, oh, I remember this little kid who didn't knew about gymnastics or sport or competition or injuries or money or nothing, that was just walking the beach, kicking stones on the, you know, and looking for... I remember I was looking for bees to try to touch them without being stung. So, and it was like, oh, I know that guy, and that guy was a little kid, and I can start all over again. And yeah, that gave me like... I remember getting out of there like without a plan. So I went to the Vipassana and I got out 10 days. Nothing happened, but I was a different person. And the big difference was like, I recovered myself. Like, hey, there's a Victor Cano. You don't need to be a gymnast forever. And yeah, that was a big shiny moment of my life. I can still remember it.
And when you got out of the retreat, you started coaching, and you met Andrea, and there was a lot of things that happened where you got to experience coaching at a high level. Although you said you got to work with the worst gymnast, but you actually got to be a gymnastics coach for the first time, a true gymnastics coach. But things evolved maybe a little different and for the better with you and Andrea moving to Mallorca and then starting doing camps for artistic swimming now, and that being something that came about without you really planning for it. And then eventually that leading you to come to the United States. And you came to the United States originally because Andrea got the opportunity to become the head coach for Team USA for artistic swimming. And I'm curious, when you made that transition into coaching, how much of your gymnastics identity influenced your coaching identity?
I think a lot, because even if I was not one of those, like, I don't want to talk about gymnastics anymore. I'm not a gymnast. I mean, I'm not sore with gymnastics. I still love gymnastics. It's only that I'm not a gymnast anymore. So, and the same, like, being a coach, I started being like a gymnastic coach, doing this almost the same stuff I saw my coaches doing to me. And then I transitioned to other sports. And in these sports, I found very valuable the stuff from gymnastics. I mean, when I teach a swimmer, or I work acrobatics with a skater, I'm not trying to emulate the skater coach. I want them to know that I'm a gymnast, and I want to give them something that gymnastics have, because I always thought that gymnastics has something valuable for many sports, soccer or golf or whatever. And I think it will be a mistake if I don't embrace it and I don't present myself like a gymnastic coach, that I'm transitioning and giving you what I think it's useful from gymnastics to you. Was not a plan to, as you were saying, I never said, okay, I'm going to be a coach, but not for gymnastics. It was something that happened over time. I had a little group of gymnasts in Mallorca, and Andrea started doing these camps. At some point, we both had a pretty demanding schedule. So competitions on weekends, blah, blah. And I was like, if I go to all my competitions and you go to all your competitions, we will never meet again. I mean, we want to be together. We had little kids. And so I was kind of giving up on my career and supporting her path. And that's where I became gymnastic coach for other sports. And I started with artistic swimming, and I'm transitioning to any other sport that has an acrobatic component, like breakdancing or skateboarding, snowboarding. Well, many sports now, they have an acrobatic component, and I found great joy on giving them information that can be very obvious for a gymnast, but can be new and very useful for other sports.
Yeah, you've definitely found a passion for helping people in sports who have an acrobatic component to utilize gymnastics to, one, get better at what they're already doing, and two, access new levels of performance, and hopefully three, create something that could potentially be a signature movement, which is very important. In gymnastics, for example, you can include new elements in the code, which is something that they owe you. Owe you an element, right? You have an element, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I think that's what you're also doing in the action sports world, and I call it the action sports world because I believe that it's the action sports world that at the moment, without including some more traditional sports like, let's say, figure skating, or we could say diving, or artistic swimming, which used to be synchronized swimming. But action sports seems to be something that you're passionate about. Why action sports? Why skating, surfing, breakdancing? What is it there?
One thing that I love of those sports is that there's a lot of people that they are practicing them just for the joy of practicing them. You know? So you go to the beach and there's 100 people today in Malibu surfing. They're not competing. They are just there because they love it and having the joy of doing sport. And the same, there's hundreds of people dancing in the street. They don't need nothing, just the music, and they go for it. Or the skate parks. In gymnastics, you don't find this. In gymnastics, you just do gymnastics. You are inside the world. There's no outsiders trying to do stuff. That's why it's so hard for the audience to catch the difficulty of the sport. I met people and they came with me to the gym. Okay, can I get out on the ring? So yeah, I can help you up. And they thought they were about to do something, and they just hang there, and it's like, okay, and now what? What's the move? How I do stuff? No, that's it. Nothing happened. There's no motor. You gotta do everything. They're like, what? So people don't understand how difficult it is. And let's say motorbikes. A lot of people ride a motorbike, and when they see the competition of the best in the world, they know what's going on there, and this happened on the action sport. There's a lot of people around the super pros, and then there are the super pros that they are leading the goal, and that's one thing that I love. But I think the thing that I like the more is that they have still a freedom that we don't have in gymnastics. They can do whatever. There's no strict code of points saying you cannot do this. So if you can do a 540 in skateboarding, and you can have your hand here, and it's okay, or you can have it here or there, and there's no such a rule that will say no, this is not good. And they look for style, and they can do tricks, old tricks, new tricks, and everything is much more open. Not to mention breakdance, that they have to improvise even in the competition, which to me is like awesome. I couldn't imagine go to the competition not knowing exactly what to do. Remember that in gymnastics, everything it's rehearsed. It's a rehearsal. Everything is like a repetition of what you did yesterday. You're just fighting for doing the same thing. And these sports are much more open. The surfer don't know if the waves are going to be big or small, or they're going to have the round 1 at 7 a.m., or it's going to happen at 10 because there's wind. And I love this. And also I love that they are new. I like everything new. And I think for the IOC that they did a very good job including all these sports, because people is demanding this. Pentathlon, modern pentathlon, I like this sport, and I have friends of modern pentathlon, but who goes now with a horse and shooting an arrow and then doing a fight with swords? It's like, okay, in the 18th century was good, but now we gotta move on. So yeah, I love all this new wave of sports in the Olympic Games, and they are much modern than we are. If you can see in Tokyo 2000 on the street skateboarding final, Jaeger Iron, who took the second place after the Japanese, just right before the last trick, when everything was like, okay, everything comes up to this trick, everybody was watching at him, and the guy took out the phone from the pocket, and he chose his favorite music, put it again on the pocket, and he did the trick. It was the first time ever someone won a Olympic medal with the cellular, the phone on the pocket, and that to me it's amazing. They're bringing new stuff to the Olympic movement. I love it.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I love not only the freedom of expression that comes from sports that are we say alternative when you're looking at it from the classic lens of the Olympic platform, but I also love the fact that there's influence of one sport to another. Like when we first started talking today, you said that breakdancing was something that inspired you to get into gymnastics. And then what we've seen in gymnastics is that gymnastics has continued to influence breakdancing, and breakdancing has come back and influenced gymnastics. I mean, you talked about Alexei Nemov. which actually when you were talking about him, I was like, Alexei Nemov. I love Alexei Nemov. I used to have pictures of him on my in my books and stuff, because I was so into these athletes. But to see Alexei Nemov do a windmill, for example, or one of the Han brothers do an air flare in the Olympics, I thought that was just incredible. And also, something you brought up that I think is very important is that you never know what you're going to get when you're working with the elements. And I mean, the waves could be bigger or smaller. You don't know what that's going to be like. Sometimes you're not doing a set routine. And just thinking back at the gymnastics days, I remember going to competitions, and then all of a sudden the equipment being a different brand and it feeling different and being hard to adapt to, or the chalk was different and it would feel different on your hands, so it took a second to adapt just to the chalk. Those little micro adaptations can throw you off. I am so impressed that there are athletes like the action sports athletes that are able to adapt to these big changes. So I agree with that. And now that you've been working with action sports athletes and been in artistic swimming for a while, what is it that is becoming clear for you that you want to continue to provide as value through your applied gymnastics approach?
Well, the fact that gives me feedback that I like to pursue this path, even if it's new and strange to me, and it's not the easiest. It will be much easier for me to just go to a club and do my levels and do gymnastics that I know how to do it. Is that last month I was at Woodward trying a trick with a skater, and I was there and I love it. I was not worry about driving 4 hours that day. I was excited because it was new, and I still liking new stuff. To me, new means life, it gives me passion, something new. It's always bring me joy, and the sounds of a skate park are new to me. The wheels, the thing, the people, they play loud music and it's punk music, and to me it's like, wow, this is all new. And they're in the Olympic Games, they're not playing games, they're training hard, or the fact that when I practice with a break dancer I'm working with, I go very happy because she's happy and embracing everything I said, but I'm also learning a lot, and it's new to me how you have to change your technique to perform in the concrete. Don't forget, they're performing in the concrete. They are super tough, and yeah, I think this component it's awesome. And not to mention the surfing I love, because the surfing is in the ocean. So I could be there in the beach for hours without no one, without a surfer. Not so. Can you imagine working and helping someone to do stuff? Yeah, I feel very exciting, everything new. And to me, it's harder to find new stuff in gymnastics. It's harder because I know I've been many years. Maybe if I will go now, everyone will be new. But the last time I was there 10 years ago, I knew all the coaches, I knew all the judges, and it was like, wow, this is more of the same, but we're getting older. This is the only thing we're doing here. So, so to me, it's very refreshness to have new setups, new sports, and new challenges.
For sure. And this is maybe a hard question to answer, but if you had to wrap up your philosophy of physical education and coaching and helping athletes become better, what does that philosophy say?
Well, this philosophy says that I can say, like, you can do it. I mean, for me, a coach is someone that tells you that you can do it. It's not someone that is telling you how to do it, or saying like in the old days, our coaches were just like people looking at us and taking out the mistakes. Like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. I had a Russian coach who was that way, and I told him one day, like, can you tell me something I do right, please? And he told me, no, if I don't say nothing, this is right. I mean, I don't like this. For me, a coach is someone that helps you do stuff you think you cannot do, and gives you tricks, gives you tools, and gives you support. I mean, for me, there's nothing bigger than seeing someone, or I had experienced it myself, doing a new movement or a new trick that you've been struggling for months, and then all of a sudden you have it, and then you learn it, and then you can do it forever. I remember I couldn't sleep those days. I was just closing the eyes and remembering the sensation, because I was so hyped of doing this new thing, or doing, I don't know, let's say one surfer doing their first barrel. I mean, and I have an interesting story about this you can do it philosophy, where I saw from outside the picture of those two coaches, and was a friend of mine, Luis Moya, was a little kid, and he was working on the parallel bars dismount. You first work on the foam pit, and then you go to the mat, to the competition mat, which is much harder. And in this particular movement, if you go for it and you commit, it's not very difficult or hard, but if you bail at some moment, you are gonna crash, and you can get really hurt. So it's just commitment. It's not a very difficult technique movement. It's just going for it. So the kid was scared, and he was there at the chalk bowl, where you try to put your mind and encourage yourself, and he was crying, and his coach was kind of pushing him, like, oh, you've been working on this for 2 months, now is the day, you told me you're gonna do it today, and now you're not doing it. You always say this, and then you don't do it. He was kind of pressuring him, like, you're not brave enough, you're a little kid, you're crying like a baby, blah blah blah. He was one side. And then I saw this Belarusian coach, who was not the coach of this gymnast, passing close to him, and then whispering something in the ear of Luis. And all of a sudden, Luis stopped crying, went to the parallel bars, and he did the dismount. And I was like, what happened here? So I went to Luis, and I asked him, what did Lev told you? I mean, the other coach was shouting at you half an hour, you were there freezing on the chalk ball, and now this old man just whispered to you something on your ear, and you did it. What did he tell you? And you know what was? He told me, you can do it. Luis, you can do it.
Wow.
That's it. As simple as that. And I was like, wow, that's what you have to do on. You just have to support. You just have to tell the gymnast that you can do it, and give him the tools to do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And I took it as my thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Victor, there's a lot more we can unpack, but I feel like we're gonna have to do another one in the future. Is there anything you would like for me or the listeners to know about you and where you're going in the future, or any words of wisdom that you could use as some departing words?
I will recommend all the coaches to don't forget that we are supporters, and that we are not competing anymore, that we have to step on the second line, and that the stars are the athletes, as a first point. And second, for the athletes, or for anyone pursuing a goal in this life, I said that on the Spanish edition, but I wanna say it again, because I think it's important, that you have to be able to visualize what you want. You have to be able to picture yourself where you want to be, that things don't happen just by chance, that If you throw an arrow, it won't go to the target if you don't aim. Well, it can happen once, but it won't happen 3 times. So you need to be able to visualize yourself throwing the arrow, going on the target, and hitting it. And then when you can visualize yourself, then you gotta throw the arrow. So it is important that you take your time on visualizing yourself doing or being what you wanna become.
Yeah, somebody has put it better than I can. See your future, be your future.
Yeah, that's simple. And yeah, I will always put this on bold letters, and I keep reminding myself this because I'm pursuing something, and sometimes it's like what I'm doing. Sometimes I think I'm doing a lot of things. Sometimes I think I'm not doing nothing, and it's like, hey, life is like a little joke. We're gonna be here like 100 years if we're lucky, and we're gonna die. This like that put us on the same place of an ant or any plant. If you watch the whole universe, this is like a little role game. So nothing is so important, and it's nice to pursue something that is meaning to you, and you have to aim for it and try it. And if you fail, aim for another thing and try it again. Nothing happened.
Victor Cano, thank you so much for being here, and congrats! You did your second podcast and first podcast in English. Amazing.
It's my first ever. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for making this happen. I hope everybody listening got as much as I did out of this conversation. And I will leave all of Victor's links in the show notes so people can follow. And you should be looking out for everything that is coming on Victor's side, because I've had the privilege of looking and getting a peek behind the scenes, and it's beautiful to see what you're creating, and I can't wait to see how it continues to evolve. So, Victor, thank you very much. I appreciate you, and much love.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for thinking of me, of this amazing project you're doing with your podcast. I love them all.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is the freestyle way.